first song we'd like to offer this morning is written by Swami Ananda, entitled Brothers. It could easily be called Sisters, and siblings just doesn't have a really good lyrical quality to it. So even though we are using the masculine pronoun of brothers, please know that this is in a placeholder for the universal connection, for that place within that we realize our unity with ourselves, with God, and with, most importantly, each other.
I've lived in many countries and mixed with many men. I've shared the days of sunshine, gone with them in the rain. The fires at evening said we were brothers. The fires at evening said we were brothers. A soldier I saw weeping beside a dying friend. My officers had said I must hate him till the end. But seeing his grief I knew we were brothers. But seeing his grief I knew we were
gentle way he smiled there would charm your fears away. A stranger he, but love made us brothers. A stranger he, but love made us brothers.
One day I climbed the mountain with friends of other lands.
The words we used were different, but joy one understands. Our gladness in God's world made us brothers. Our gladness in God's world made us brothers. Though words and customs vary like waves upon the sea, one life beneath the surface binds everyone to me. Who knows the truth knows all men as brothers. Who knows the truth knows all men as brothers. Then brothers, why endeavor to set ourselves apart? The fences we've been building squeeze tight upon our hearts. Come sing the truth that all men are brothers. Come sing the truth that all men are brothers.
Good morning. Our reading is from Rays of the One Light Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week's reading, week 47, Reincarnation, the Spiral Staircase. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, Jesus Christ tells us, "Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out." There is a difference between church dogmas, which are based on reasoned deductions from scriptural statements, and the pronouncements of wisdom, which are based on the inner realization of scriptural truths. Reason, like a train, can only follow already existing tracks of human experience. Human memory, being short, is seldom able to cross back over the threshold of a person's present existence. Biblical references to previous lifetimes on earth are overlooked in the deductive process, and we find them therefore excluded from the body of official dogma. Nevertheless, such references exist. The Bible itself presents them, as does Jesus in this passage, not as abstract teaching, but as direct personal perception of truth. In the same way, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita silences Arjuna's reasonable doubts on the subjects, not by reasoned argument, but by the frank statement contained in the 4th chapter of that great scripture. Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births. I know all of them, though you, O chastiser of foes, recall them not. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Surendra. I'm here this morning with Lorna and Mari. Thank you for joining us. It's our pleasure to be with you. Karma and reincarnation, two of our favorite topics. It's not surprising that our symbols for these two are circular, because round and round we go, don't we? We speak of karma as a wheel, and we have a number of time-worn phrases that describe it as such. Jesus said, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." And if he were here today, he'd probably use more of our own language. What goes around comes around. In today's reading on reincarnation, we have the image of a spiral staircase representing the soul's journey to self-realization. Up and around, oops, down and around every once in a while, up and around again, and so on. We call it the journey of life, and sometimes we call it hard. But really, it's just a series of simple lessons to be mastered one step at a time. The only complication involved in that process is the complication we bring to it ourselves. This, however, was not the teaching that I received as a boy. I was raised Catholic, and reincarnation was not part of the church's catechism or its vocabulary. Given what I was led to believe about heaven and hell in particular, I was convinced that eternal bliss was a one-shot opportunity. And anyone who believed otherwise was probably going to burn. I could not imagine a worse face of faith. Let's try that again. I could not imagine a worse fate than burning for eternity. But like many a Catholic lad who discovered that sin could be very alluring at times, I myself was frequently at risk, which is to say that I was faced with the awful danger of doing something that would send me to hell if suddenly, at the moment of doing it, I happened to die. And when I entered my teenage years, the odds against my salvation shrunk exponentially. I submit to you that dealing with the rules of purity as described by the church versus the onset of intense hormonal activity is a contest of ingenious cruelty. Hence the further quest, onset of guilt, fear, and confusion. I was a young man before I decided that a loving God would not create a place of permanent pain and suffering for someone like me and for the transgressions that I had committed and was very likely to commit again. Nonetheless, my guilt was not thereby lifted. Catholic guilt has a special ability to bury itself in your bones for a brutally long time. And then for a few years after that, I tried to be an atheist, mostly because I thought that would be pretty sophisticated. But finally, I had to realize that atheism is just another form of religious belief. It's the belief that there is no religion or God to believe in. Atheism actually has no basis in actual experience, which we emphasize. And there is obviously no line of ascended masters who have returned to earth to report that God does not exist. Like many of my generation, influenced by the American counterculture of the 1960s and 70s, I began at last to seriously look to the teachings of the East. In my late 20s, I had the very good fortune to attend a couple of lectures by the great Krishnamurti in California. And I loved what he had to say because it was free of dogma, of what Paramahansa Yogananda called churchianity. I was also drawn to Buddhist philosophy and the Tao Te Ching. And soon the concepts of karma and reincarnation began to make perfect sense to me as an explanation of how this earthly setup has been designed. I might have continued to follow the Buddhist path, except for the notion of nothingness. It's nothingness that is said to be the ultimate prize upon reaching the top of that spiral staircase. And I just couldn't get fired up for that. I was frankly hoping that eternity had a little more to offer. You've probably seen that wonderful humorous cartoon of the Dalai Lama opening his favorite birthday gift, which is a gift box with nothing in it. Just what I always wanted, he exclaims with delight. I suppose that communing with nothing, well, it's certainly better than burning in hell, but nothing just didn't appeal to me as something that I'd be looking at in passing from this earth. And my view of death itself, well, I sort of go along with Woody Allen, who said, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." Well, afraid or not, death is certain to come. We've all done it myriad times, and we get to do it again. The only question is, how many more times do you want to repeat the procedure? At what point do you say, that's enough? I want Satchidananda, that ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new bliss that nothing here can give me. Today's reading began with a Bible passage from the book of Revelation. "Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of God, and he shall go no more out." In today's language, it means he who conquers his ego, who frees his heart of the vestiges of worldly desire, rises to the pinnacle of self-realization and has no further need to reincarnate. His karmic slate has been wiped clean, and he is purely of God. Going out is a reference to last week's parable of the prodigal son, which Lorna talked about. The prodigal son is he or she, us, who go out from the Father's home, to explore the temptations of Maya, the Hindu word for delusion. And it's not until we return to the Father, fully done with delusion's allure, that we shall go no more out, no more into another required lifetime on earth. There's no question that we have a lot to contend with. The external forces we encounter every day pull us in many directions. We've been conditioned not merely to have desires, but to cultivate them. And we've acquired all kinds of habits as a result. But we also know that our worldly desires are steeped in false promises of lasting happiness and security. And we know that these are what defeat us in our quest for communion with God. And yet still, we sometimes follow those urges, don't we? On the countless occasions that we have had to come back to this earthly plane of existence, we've been bound to its physical limitations, and in particular to the human body itself, to these limitations. Paramahansa Yogananda once remarked that when a baby is born, it takes its first breath and cries aloud, as if to say, "Oh no, I'm back here again." A movie that had quite an impact on me when I was just a kid was Disney's Pinocchio. The story of that little boy remains just as poignant today, especially the part where he is led astray to the dazzling and dreamy temptations of Pleasure Island. I can still see those giant ice cream cones and other oversized goodies that were depicted. And that part of the story has been our story too. Here we are, like Pinocchio, presented with all kinds of voluminous images of things to want and to have. Maybe we get excited about the attractive possibilities, and for a time, things can work out pretty well. But somewhere along the way, there's a bit of a problem, and maybe that problem gets even bigger. We find ourselves kidnapped, so to speak, by our worldly desires, and suddenly we're swept into the sea of our misguided expectations, where the situation can go from bad to worse, and we're swallowed, like Pinocchio, by Monstro the whale. Now, in the belly of that whale, things are pretty dark. We get delusioned and depressed, and there's a period of regret that ensues. And we swear that if we ever get out, things will be different, and we will mend our ways. And finally, Monstro spits us out, and we persuade ourselves that we've learned our lesson. But after a while, Pleasure Island is calling to us again. And maybe we're ready to give it another chance, overcome by new visions of goodies, power, fortune, and fun. Does it ever strike you that it's kind of laughable that we are considered the smartest species on earth? The teachings of this Ananda path, unmistakable as they are, offered by these great masters, by Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda, these teachings are intended for no other purpose than to guide us out of this maze of ego indulgence and into the joy of reunion with God. The spiral staircase of reincarnation is only as long and circuitous as we choose to make it. We've even been given the key to an elevator ride to the top, the practice of Kriya Yoga. In this time of political unrest and social instability and even of moral decay, we are so incredibly blessed to have a realized master at the top of that spiral staircase telling us exactly how to proceed. And we have the unflagging discipleship of Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda, revealing to us the attitude and attunement that it takes to meet every challenge along the way. But we have to do the work according to what they have provided. The alternative is what we've experienced throughout our lives. Fleeting pleasures offset with pain, smooth sailing suddenly interrupted by the blast of a karmic bomb, and dualities at every turn that take us outward. The hellish experience that I feared as a youth has proved to be a rather portable anguish every time I've allowed my ego to be the one calling the shots, especially when it has subverted my better judgment and my better qualities. Like everyone else, I'm still learning the ways out of ego's grip. But I see a little more light among the shadows every day. And the certainty of dying does not frighten me as it once did, even if I do have to be there when it happens. Swamiji counseled us to make every effort to become jivan muktas, free from ego attachment, for the remainder of this lifetime, however many years we have left. And he would not have planted that seed of hope if he didn't think we could do it. Whether or not I get there this time around, I take great inspiration in that possibility, in that destiny. And I continue to give it increasing energy, and I hope you will too. I know that you do. As we move closer every day to leaving this mortal frame behind, what could be more divinely rewarding than finding ourselves near or at the top of that spiral staircase? I thank God and Guru every day for this path and for people like you who inspire and support me step by upward step. There's a bond that we share, and it is beautiful. What a blessing. I'd like to close with a reading from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda. This is his prayer demand, number 80. Demand to be freed from self-created evil habits and temptations. Teach me, O Spirit, to distinguish between my soul's lasting happiness and the temporary pleasures of the senses. Strengthen my willpower. Teach me not to be enslaved by bad habits. Teach me to be guided only by good habits, formed by good company and meditation. Teach me above all to be guided by thy wisdom. Teach me to shun evil by right judgment and discrimination. Teach me willingly to adopt all good ways, influenced only by inner freedom and not compelled by hardened habits. Om Shanti Shanti.
This next song is also written by Swami Kriyananda, entitled, What is Love?
What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love our own powers. What is joy? Is it just a dream? Or does joy laugh in every stream? Are the clouds mindless after all? Or is joy all nature's theme? God is dead, so men say. Can't they see all life's his play? Not a church finds him as its own. Not a creed makes him fully known. Foolish we, if we limit him. Every atom is his throne. What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is love? What is love? Is it love we touch in the flowers?
welcome. Happy Thanksgiving week. I wanted to draw your attention to a few things that are going on. This week we still have our drop-in meditation and our yoga classes. We will not have the book study group that would usually take place on Thursday. That will resume again in December. One fun thing happening just today at 1 o'clock, right after service, is the ensemble group. The choir group is going to be singing at Prosperity Pie, which is a place over here in Multnomah Village, and it's going to be great fun. And if you happen to be in the neighborhood or want to drop by for some pie and some song, that would be lovely to have you there. And then what we have is our new list of all activities happening in December for the holidays and for the end of the year. So be sure to pick up one of these or go online, check and see what's happening. We don't want you to miss anything. It starts early with December 2nd. The choir is going to be performing at the Grotto during their Festival of Lights. We'd really like to see you here on the 14th in December, which is our big choir concert here, followed by a cookie song. So you can come on the 14th, enjoy the music, and bring some cookies to share with that one. And then we also have coming up the first week in December, on December 7th, it's a Saturday, is our World Brotherhood Day celebration here. It's in the late afternoon at 4 o'clock. We're going to have a lovely time. We have some wonderful videos to show, which we have not shown before. And it's a celebration and an acknowledgement of what is really Master's mission in this world, with World Brotherhood Colonies, drawing us all together in that light. And Ananda is a part of that all over the world. So we do our event here, and then we go into the other room and we have a lovely Indian catered meal together. So be sure to come for that. If you have any questions, let us know. And is there any, and one more thing. We have some specials in the boutique right now. And as most of you know, we have been shifting things here in the temple a little bit. David Miller moved in, we moved the office, we've been cleaning, and we've been doing things. And as a result of that, we had this beautiful box full of wonderful stuff that we wanted to give away. Lots of presents from years past, pictures of Joe Tish's paintings and gifts and freebies and things like that. And I just put them out in Clarity Room. Please help yourself. Take anything you'd like, especially newer people. There's a lot of stuff there that you probably haven't seen before. So Merry Christmas early.